And the fact that the public is still buying that garbage, I don't know what to make of it.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate and actual performance may differ. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional.
And we are back with another edition of the Daily Dots. And I am joined, as always, by the brain trust himself, Mr. Chase Taylor. So, risk on. Buy stocks. Trump gave the order.
Sent out the bat signal.
Yeah, sent out the bat signal. All in all, had you told me he'd have thrown that out there, I would have expected. I mean, markets took off right when he said it. They responded
at first, but
yeah,
and kind of like the Friday, we're going to talk to China news, like big jump, and then it kind of faded back.
Yeah, give us a rundown on the indexes, would you?
Yeah, S&P closed up 0.58, and we were a good bit higher at one point.
That was up to 1.7 at one point.
And the Qs closed up 1.02, basically getting rejected by the 200-day. Small caps up 1.92, equal weight 0.84, Mag 7 up 1.43, again was up a lot more. Non-US stuff was down 0.25, and that is largely because the dollar, as we'll cover here in a sec, had a nice jump. Oil was up over 3%. Pretty rough day in the metal land with gold down 2.3. The dollar was up 0.8, and that has kept going throughout the day, kept building up strength. And I think it's probably one of the reasons equities backed off is you have dollar and rates jumping. The 2-year was up 11 basis points, and the 10-year was up about 12 basis points. So having the dollar and the 10-year yield break higher, oil doing some rebounding, those are, in their own ways, even though they're all pretty low at the moment, like those are pretty real constraints.
Yeah. What happened? What did the 30-year do?
30-year was a little more muted. I think it was up 8 basis points. And we did have a 30-year auction today. We've had a lot of good auctions lately. This one wasn't as good. It wasn't like a huge tail, but bid to cover ratio was low, and primary dealers had to take a good bit. So not terrible, not to me, but it was the weakest one in a while.
Carvana was a big winner,
of course.
Stellar results.
We had. I think the biggest news today was the trade deal, UK US. For the first deal we've kind of cemented since this all started. So I think that's going to be important moving forward on how some of these go.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of like saying you got a trade deal done with your mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of baked into the cake, right? If you've got problems cutting a trade deal with the UK, we got much bigger problems than that.
We run a trade surplus with them.
Yeah.
So it isn't really, and 2% of imports come from the UK, but it's a big deal for them. Like we're their biggest export market. And they got
but that's why
that's
why I'm surprised the market reacts that way. No, we shouldn't at all be concerned about cutting trade deals with countries we run a surplus with. That ain't going to be the issue.
Which is what makes the Canada thing weird.
Just where are we? Yeah, it's all about where we're running deficits. That's going to be the tricky part. The other tough thing too, the madness that you continue to see in these markets chasing things. Like I'm reading through see how they were chasing. I get that.
See what you did there.
Pun there. It's punny.
Haven't dealt with that my whole life.
I know. I'm sure you haven't. But like, you look at a Carvana, I'm blown away that in this environment, that idiocy continues. That smells so bad. Like every time.
But it has for years.
I know.
No one cares.
And no one cares. And and the funny thing is the underlying doesn't improve. No matter what the top line number is, you get in there, it's pure financial engineering. It's selling off of loans. It's extending loan extensions. And the fact that the public is still buying that garbage, I don't know what to make of it. It really is incredible though to see the bid come into these ridiculous things.
Yeah, and I'll even make an allowance for a big part of the run up. Like it looks like it's going to imminently go bankrupt. They managed to get their way out of that. Like,
100%.
If it, it triples out of going from definitely going bankrupt to not like that, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But then to see like the last year, call it, where it's kind of obvious what's going on. You had the great short report that's like 1 million pages that has tons of details. Granted, that would require people to read, and that's a lost art these days. But yeah, it is. It's like a lot of things, though. I mean, talk about the tide going out to see who's swimming naked. Like
I just wonder
the tide
what
doesn't go out anymore. So
the flip side is too. Just you know what? For anybody out there that doesn't think the regulatory system is broken, like I wish you could change seats with me. And at some point, I'll be able to have a discussion about this without having to hold anything back. But the insanity of how we regulate, it just blows my mind. It freaking blows my mind that no one sent them a Wells notice. Nobody's gone in there to sit there and go, hey, your books reek.
If one thing to me, to me, one of the things the SEC should have to do is to read all the short reports. And be like, hey, if something's in there that looks legit, like at least take a quick look, right? Because some of these outfits that do the short reports, now some of them are crap, and they're just trying to get their stock to move 3% so they can make some change. But a lot of them have great reputations, have gotten huge things right over and over.
Yeah.
Also, the Jim Chanoses of the world that have nailed multiple major frauds, right? So to me, like, I don't know, if someone gives you like a 100-page detailed document, maybe at least feed it through ChatGPT real quick and see if it has anything fun to say. Maybe you should go knock on their door.
Yeah, you'd think. And you bring up a really good point. If I was in charge of the SEC, one of the things I would do with a division of guys, I don't know how big the team would need to be, but we'd follow all of the credible short sellers out there, because you've seen it over and over and over. And that's one of the things I get so irritated by whenever they start going after short sellers. And I'm just sitting there, and the minute somebody
financial immune system.
Yeah. And the minute somebody says that, I immediately write them off as a charlatan, because they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. They don't know how brutal it is. They don't know how even when you're right, you can get destroyed. It takes so much skill and expertise that when you run around acting like these guys are just throwing things around irresponsibly, it's too dangerous to be a short seller, especially in the last 15 years. And to not use those guys as a source of information, it's insane. I mean, the reason, look, the Bernie Madoff thing.
I was about to say, Markopoulos handed him the whole
handed
thing
it to him
on a silver platter. It was like great detail on exactly how this whole thing was going down.
Multiple years before it folded up and went away.
Oh yeah.
And
he went back to them over and over with it. Every time he would go back would be even more detailed.
Yep.
And they were like, nah.
And this is Enron. Nobody listened to Chanos about Enron. Yeah. It's over and over. How many guys that we know, that we've spoken to, were sounding the alarm about the banks and the mortgages as early as 2005, 2006. And it's always the same crowd. Why wouldn't you listen and go look at it? No. You're busy chasing around financial advisors who you think made too much in one of their clients' accounts, trading something that's impossible to manipulate. Now that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah. Or as Luke Roman likes to point out, you're like past the turn in 08, and Congress is focused on like steroids in baseball, like grilling the baseball players and hearings and stuff.
Yeah. And look, there's a lot of great people in the regulatory bodies, a lot of great people that work at the SEC. I'm not even blaming those people. Like, to me, it's a leadership issue. It's a formation issue. Like, it's structured incorrectly, right? You should be going after the things that cause the greatest number, the greatest harm, right? The other thing is there should be some training to look for telltale signs, right? Because I'm not going to say unequivocally, but pretty close, right? The way that, especially on the investment side, when you can view client accounts, it is really, really easy, if you've got access to the information, to tell whether something is being done in a above board fashion, or whether it's done, or whether something's being done questionable or untoward, right? Like it's not hard. And the reason why is because there's always hallmarks. There's always these things that stick out on both sides, meaning there's things that you can check. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but if you were a regulator looking at somebody's books, there's a couple things you'll check and see where you're like, okay, we're still going to finish the look, but I know that doesn't accompany fraud, right? Conversely, you see other things where you're like, ding, 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 red lights doesn't mean they're guilty, but that is certainly smoke, right? And I will just tell you that's not the way it works at all. And some of the things you'll get questioned on, you turn around, you're looking at them going, I wouldn't even know how to do that. And I don't think anybody in the world knows how to do that. Like, so you're asking me to prove I didn't do something that's impossible. It's like you're asking me to prove I didn't fly. You know what I mean? I'm like, I mean, you could take my word for it, but like, why don't you explain to me how I would have done that? You know what I mean? Where you're literally looking at them going, I don't know. What are you talking about? And then you see the things, like you see the Carvana stuff and you're like, what? Like, hey, is it possible? I'm not a forensic accountant. Okay. Far from it. I'm not even a CPA. Is it possible I'm wrong? 100%. Okay. But not just you and me. And there's so many of these out there, right? Like it's not just one, but better investors than you and I, we're all looking at that and agree. Yeah, guys.
Speaking of Jim Chanos, he's been on Carvana for years. I mean,
there's smoke coming out of the windows, guys. Like this looks really, really unquestionable, including the level of insider selling, right? If the future is really that bright, usually owner founders aren't liquidating their stock faster. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and to these guys, you pointed it out, the guys that run this, they've already liquidated tens of billions of dollars worth of stock. It doesn't matter to them, right? So the loan loss book goes through the roof and the company ends up going banco anyway. It doesn't matter.
They already won the game.
Yeah. And if they got to be a spackler, right, and pay a $2 billion fine and they can parade them around, like that's fine. They'll just retire with 10 billion instead of 12. They're going to be good. I just don't understand what and I would be all ears. Again, I don't say that in a contentious way. I have stood on top of the building saying, hey, I think we need regulators. I'm not saying to get rid of the SEC. I'm saying I think you need to change the way they're structured and change what they're incentivized to look at. And that's not just me, having to deal with them. But having to deal with them, you quickly realize, wait a second, why are you paying attention to this and not that?
Yeah. Maybe instead of worrying about essentially forcing hedge funds to not market at all, things like that, maybe point, like all you got to do is look broadly. You can see that people are getting ripped off in crypto. People are getting ripped off in equities.
Yeah. Like you can't. Yeah. No, that's a good point. It's something a lot of people don't realize. If you run a fund of any kind, and you know what, I should look into it. I don't think it pertains to us because we don't run a marketable fund that people can invest in. Like they could call us. So I don't think but if you run a fund, like when I have Tobias Carlisle on, his ETF, he can't even say what his ETF has done that year.
Oh yeah. They not even close. I mean,
think about that.
Yeah, they don't even want to talk about it.
Yeah. So should there be a law that you can't falsify the performance of your fund?
Exactly. You can't lie, but you can talk about it.
You can't say if your fund is up 8%,
but you can make a 4X like Bitcoin ETF, and that's perfectly fine. That'll get greenlit, but you can't talk about you could run like a bond ETF that has no risk hardly.
Yeah. And you
can't
just
talk about it.
Yeah. And you just sit there. Like I said, I would love to have been there when that rule started. Why is that? Well, because people will lie about their performance. People that will lie about their performance are going to do it whether or not there's a law against it or not.
Right.
So once again,
they go after the people that get caught lying.
Right. So once again, you've created an environment where the guys that follow the rules are at a disadvantage to the ones that don't. Right. Like that's what you've done, because the guys that are going to do it, they're going to do it anyway. They're already breaking the law. They're already lying about performance. Right. The guys that don't, and they're not going to, like you and I. You and I are going to have good years. We're going to have bad years. You and I are not going to walk into the office one day and go, you know what? Let's start pilfering client accounts. Let's start making all-in options bets on Graham and Nancy's portfolio over there. You know what I mean? We're not. Why? There's a big body of work, and people don't just all of a sudden, fly off the rails and start doing something completely different from what they've done. But no, it's and like I said, there's so many others. SMCI was another one. We're looking at that. They had a big earnings miss, right? When you look at the way data centers are going up, how is that possible? You just see all of these red flags all over the place and just nothing being done about them. General thoughts about the market, whatever. Pivoting, I was telling you something. Nothing would surprise me. But as I watched this rally push closer and closer to even, I couldn't help but fight the feelings of familiarity, right? The feelings of, I've seen this before. And the internal feelings of, despite the fact that this seems crazy, do not underestimate the chance of this taking off again, because we've seen it multiple times. Maybe we're at new all-time highs in 2 weeks. It's possible. Something does feel different, though. Something does feel different. To me, anyway. Now, if you get a big trade announcement or something to break through on a fundamental basis, all bets are off.
But even there, I feel like trade getting a lot better is now in the price.
I'm watching things, though. This market continues to narrow, and if you look at it, the whatever was the most real did not rally that hard. Like, you show me a rally that was, I kept looking at the tape, and when the Qs were at their highs of the day, and looking at NVIDIA and going, that's interesting. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, meaning the universe, it appears to me, and I haven't done any research on this, so I could be completely wrong, but the universe of things that is responding very robustly to these, it seems like it's narrowing. There's so many of these nonsense stocks, meme stocks, that are very close, if not pushing back toward their highs and right on the verge of it. Well, meanwhile, the Apples, the NVIDIAs, Teslas, right? They're still significantly off their highs. That's interesting to me. That's really interesting to me. Because if you're in an environment, one of the two has to be right or wrong. If you're in an environment where the stalwarts of this entire move are no longer going up and they've run into economic resistance, those meme stocks are going to get destroyed. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think short term, you're down to liquidity and then the mechanical side's reasserting itself.
Yep.
Though I feel like the one thing that gives me some concern that this may last a little bit longer is just seeing the dollar kind of broke higher today from, obviously it's pretty low, but you're back above 100 and you kind of went sideways for a couple of weeks. Now you're ripping higher, stuff like that. And that makes me feel like, okay, well, the international outflows have chilled out.
Well, or will the world continue to sell the rips?
Well, we'll see.
I know, that's what I was thinking, the same thing coming into this. I was like, it's going to be really interesting to me. Does this dollar up move crap out here, or 101, 102 maybe? Or do you push back up toward 105? I think it's going to be really interesting to see what the response is from the market here, because you've got it happening both, right? You got U.S. equities rallying. You got the dollar now start back above 100.
Rates up.
So will they sell? I personally still feel like, at the very least, the U.S. markets have become funding mechanisms for international.
Yeah, I think that is the new trend, but it can be a slow and bumpy trend
with some big reversal moves in the middle there too.
At the end of the day, only Turkey, Thailand, and Indonesia are doing worse than the U.S. year to date. So, we're still down on the year for the S&P, and still, compared to the rest of the world, doing terrible. But man, we have definitely ripped, the last few weeks. I think what it comes down to at this point is, I think we're going to go higher until one or two different things happens, and that's bona fide bad hard data, where it's like, oh, we're actually not going to escape a recession, like it's here, and we just haven't had that yet. But I think when you get that, then the market has to be like, okay, well, earnings are in big trouble, and go down. Or we've had this incremental. They've done a great job of, like, the drip hose of positive headlines for trade for this entire time almost every day you get a little like, oh, we're going to get one here real soon. Like it's going to be a great deal.
You know what it reminds me a lot? It reminds me a lot of a feeling and a cadence that I felt to markets like between like 2011 and 2015. I felt like there were so many moments. I go back to Draghi, whatever it takes. There were so many moments where I was bared up and the trajectory of things was clearly bearish. And the central bankers were able to stick save it like every time, right? It kind of has that same kind of feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as long as that hard data is there and we don't get new negative headlines on trade, I think we keep going up. But like we're talking about, like, cool, you did a trade deal with the UK. Like, what really matters is the China one. And they're having the meeting this weekend. So like I was telling you, like if that turns into a bunch of name calling and the Chinese walk out and we have no like lower to tariffs and it looks like you're going to stick above 100 for a while, then that too, I think the market would have a nasty open on Sunday night. If that went that poorly, I think we've reached the point where the market is pricing in our tariffs on China coming down a lot and soon. If it doesn't get that, I think you have to go back the other way.
I got to tell you something. I just saw our performance for the day. When I look at yesterday and today, considering what we were up against, the fact that we finished where we did, I got to go through that. That's 2 days in a row where I saw the end number and went, oh, I was expecting that to be a lot worse. Narrowly finished in the green today. Took a small lashing yesterday. We were down 38 bips or something like that.
I don't remember, but
something like that. But with one of our biggest positions getting smacked.
Nice to see Google, like hold in there today. Because my fear was like, are you gonna have 2 days in a row where you're just kind of down, 5-ish? Like that would be not fun.
Yeah,
but
no,
we hung in there.
Yeah, a lot of fundamental investors in Google. Apparently, I heard a lot of I was laughing. I saw tweets all over the place, just like, "Oh, you got to sell it. It's going to zero." And
yeah, search is dead. I saw a lot of that.
Oh yeah, search is dead.
Search's revenue is growing 13%, but
yeah, it's all dead. Yeah,
my fear was that search was dead. Like it was terrified me. And then every quarter I'm looking at it like, no, did it die? And you look at it, they're fine. Like,
yeah, they're fine. Yeah, it's still good.
Obviously, if you get kicked off the iPhone, like,
that's a real threat. I might do I hope that doesn't happen? Yes. Am I afraid of that happening? Yes. Does that make it this harder investment? Yes. But if you trying to think here, if you told me unequivocally that was going to happen over the next 2 years, would I sell Google here? I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
I think I might trim it and hope it got smashed and then
add back. That's probably what I do. And the reason why is they're just they're sitting on a bunch of lottery tickets that are about ready to pay.
It's not even like search has nothing to do with why I like it anyway. It's the other verticals. It's YouTube. It's the possible future of Waymo being what it could be.
Just heard I think Mike Green posted something that Waymo just hit 100 million paid rides so far.
Speaking of,
or a million paid rides so far.
Speaking of, in the deal today with the UK, we had, what was it, 27.5% tariffs on their auto imports, which I didn't realize until today, but we took that down to 0 for the first 100,000 vehicles. That's a big deal for Jaguar. That may help Waymo maybe stick with those iPaces or whatever they are, and save a few bucks on them.
I liked your idea the other day. Like if I was Waymo, I'd be in there lobbying to do a deal with BYD, get a BYD factory here in the U.S.
The company they work with now from China, we're trying to is Geely.
Oh, yeah.
And no, I would much prefer BYD, but I think they're the best car company in the world. But and what's funny is, what is the other?
There's another one. A client of mine, Carrie, how you doing? I hope you're listening. But a client of mine sent me a really sharp guy, and he sent me an email. What is the name of it? Bezos is invested in it.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You can custom build their
yeah. Slate.
Yes, Slate.
I've already customized those just for fun.
Yeah. That's an interesting deal. And they're going at the low end market too.
Yep.
You can buy like a stripped down version one for what's the entry level one?
Like it's cheap, I remember, but I can't remember what the price point was.
Yeah, it's impressive. But you can really, I mean, you can customize these things like almost no other car out there.
Yeah, full stop. You can change basically everything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's fun. It's a fun website to toy around with, and it's like trucks and SUVs, not even cars.
Do they have, or have they delivered any? Do they have any working?
No, they're just now getting going.
Conception stage still.
I think they're going to start producing. It's either this year or next. Like they'll start rolling some stuff out. But
God, that's such a expensive business to get into. Whew.
Yeah, on first blush, whenever you see what they're saying they're going to sell it for, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll believe it when the first one gets sold for that.
Yeah,
but it's an exciting prospect because to me, like one of the biggest underserved market in the U.S. for automobiles is a very cheap, very simple vehicle, and that's where like some of these cars coming from China, like or even India, where they can specialize is some of that stuff. Like none of our automakers want to do that or can afford to do that. But if you can have, build a BYD factory, a Geely factory, whatever's like Xiaomi or whatever, like the Ford CEO drives that literally, like drives a Chinese car, not a Ford car, and he loves it.
Why?
He says it's just an incredible car. Like he drove it over there and he was like, I need this.
He's the Ford CEO and he doesn't drive a Ford.
I mean, I'm sure he does too, but he's publicly just doted on how much he loves that car.
Wow.
But I've heard this from every Westerner that I've heard that has experienced some of the cars that they're coming out with. This is their reaction. It's like the new BYD SUV. It's like a luxury SUV. You look at that thing and you want it, and it has like it's crazy. Like on the front passenger seat, it has a screen for you to like watch TV, and it has 3 screens in the back, and they're like big, nice screens. The thing's amazing.
Okay, what's the name of it?
It's something U8. I don't remember if you just put in U8.
I got an Atto 3.
Yeah, put in U8.
Okay, a U8. I mean, you said you see it, you want to buy it. Well, we're going to put that to the test.
Especially the interior.
Okay, now you're already equivocating, or you're already. Yeah, I mean that's a good looking ride.
Yeah,
that is a good looking ride.
It's like a hybrid, so you can go gas and battery, and it has a huge range. Incredibly fuel efficient, obviously.
Oh boy, that is a good looking interior.
Holy smokes! Screen on the passenger side,
that don't look like a Tesla.
Yeah,
at all.
Now that's not the $10,000 vehicle, obviously, but
yeah, that one looks like it's going to cost you a little bit north. What are they going to sell that for? Do you know?
I want to say like these come out to like 70 grand or something. I can't remember.
That's still not that bad.
That's totally whack.
What kind of range are they getting? Ranges, really good ranges.
Yeah, and BYD now has where you can do 5-10 minute charging, and their new Blade batteries are pretty incredible. So
I just saw that the new Chevy Silverado EV. I think they said they hit a real life 540 mile range on the thing.
Nice.
On a single charge. Now, got to assume that wasn't going through the mountains in wintertime.
Right.
But
I'm sure that's a long charge, but still, I mean,
yeah, that's
every mile you add to range, every minute you take off of a charge makes more people go, all right, you know what? Yeah, I'll get it.
Yeah, you can swing it. Right.
Because to me, whenever the thing is truly comparable to ICE, like I'm in, like that's fine. I don't want my range messed with, and I don't want to take 45 minutes to air quotes get gas, right?
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is if people that have had these and used them for any kind of long range travel, there's what it says, and then there's the reality of it, right? Like meaning even with some of the Ford Lightning trucks, I knew a guy that owned one, and he was trying to make a trip from Western Washington to Spokane on the other side of the state, right? Should run you about 4 hours and 4.5 hours to make that drive. Took him like 10. Because he was doing it in winter,
in the mountains,
cold, in the mountains, going up. I think he had to stop and recharge 3 or 4 times.
And this is not, no thank you, right?
No, and that's like a 330 mile trip.
Yeah. Right?
In a car that was supposed to have a 350 mile range. So, I mean, and you've got kids. I mean, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm going to triple I'm going to double the time in the car just so I can have an EV with 3 children. Apparently.
And that's why it's insane to me that more people don't just focus on hybrids. Like at least put the tiny little gas engine in there.
Yeah, I don't.
Which I think China, like especially BYD, has kind of figured out. Like they've passed Tesla on the EVs, but then you look over at the hybrid side, and that's like Their hybrids grew at like 70+% last year, and the EVs were growing at like 10-15%.
Yeah, but that goes to what you and I were talking about, which is the church of climate change, meaning they're like with everything these days. At some point, the church of climate change decided that incremental improvement was the enemy, right? And that we were only going to entertain things that we considered to be ultimate. And, you know, you and I have looked at the whole time and you're like, hey guys, I'm all about a cleaner environment and cleaner air and stuff like that. Why don't we switch like coal to like nat gas? Why don't we transition to hybrid? Nope, we got to go. And you're like, okay, but that's worse, right? Like
the consumer's king. At the end of the day, consumer's going to largely decide, and they've made it super clear lately what they want in all of these arenas.
Yeah, well, and not just the consumer either, right? Like meaning, I mean, what kind of incremental improvement you'd have around the world if you replaced every single coal-fired plant with nat gas?
Just tremendous, yeah.
Huge. But no, nat gas is the enemy too. It's just crazy. It's just crazy talk to me where I'm always like, no, guys, we can all be on the same team, but like you're saying that we're only going to roll the dice if we think it'll pay out $1 million. To hell with the $50,000 prize. And you're like, that's real money, man. You know, it's a hard one to wrap your head around. Anyway, we got to get rolling. You got anything else to finish up with? Anything else we're looking forward?
No, data's pretty chill even tomorrow. Well, there's really none.
Well, it's a good thing for you because we got a big life moment for you here.
The last thing I have is I'll be out tomorrow and Monday, so you'll be flying solo for the folks on Friday and Monday.
Do I have to call you master after you get back?
I don't think that's how that works. Though.
Okay, good. Because now you officially are higher up the educational ladder than I am.
I will say my ancestor I can track back the furthest in England. His official title in the court of King Henry was Master of the Scrolls. So
you know what? That makes sense. You're kind of like that here.
Master of the Scrolls.
The charts, scrolls. I mean, that's the modern day scroll. The modern day scroll are charts on a Bloomberg.
Scroll in the charts. Yep.
Apple hasn't fallen far from the tree. All right. Well, the only difference is your employer is not quite as well renowned. You know, a little bit
less
different.
wives. Yeah.
Yeah. Way less wives. Yeah. You did a worse job selecting a place to work, but the job title is pretty similar. Anyway. All right, guys, that does it for us today. As always, you can catch our videos on YouTube. Just search for Know Your Risk Podcast on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Just Google Know Your Risk Podcast, Know Your Risk Radio. Sign up for the podcast, knowyourriskradio.com. You guys know the drill. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow, or at least I will see you tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow with the show. And other than that, have a great night. You're listening to Know Your Risk Podcast. Download and subscribe at knowyourriskradio.com.
Investment advice cannot be given without a client service agreement. Zach Abraham is an investment advisor representative of Trek Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. Bulwark Capital Management is a marketing name only and does not carry a separate registration.